All right, everybody. We are live, another broadcast here from Los Angeles and Florida today with Mr. Jay Nisbett. How you doing today?
Doing good, John, man. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Man, I'm fired up today. This is going to be awesome. Jay's going to talk a little bit about what he does and how they provide value to the community at large. Let me just flip over here and just tell you briefly that the 407 group in Florida is a full service digital marketing company. And basically what we're going to talk about today, the title of today's broadcast is how to create an omnipresence for your brand. And so we'll learn some strategies, perhaps even some tactics, some cool things that Jay will share, but also we'd like to start out with kind of this journey of our entrepreneurs on this broadcast and what they've found to be challenging, some perhaps some mistake problems and opportunities along the way, things that really talk about their own sort of rise to fame, if you will, a rise to growth, and some of the challenges along the way that we all can learn from and hopefully get inspired along the way. So welcome, Jay, today. How you doing? You're doing well, as you said?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Really excited to be on this show with you. I know you have, a pretty extensive history in this space, so it means a lot for you to have me on here. So going back to kind of my process and how my company came to fruition, I'd been in the Facebook ad space for maybe 5 or 6 years now. And it kind of started out, I started a clothing company with a couple buddies. And we realized pretty quickly that there's just not a lot of money in retail clothing companies. So we kind of shifted our approach to have a digital strategy to it. So I kind of took on the Facebook ads, and I quickly learned how effective it can be, how detailed the targeting can get, the benefits of reaching a ton of people, from a laptop anywhere in the world. That was the big draw for me to the digital space, just being able to work on my own terms, work wherever I want as long as I have a computer. Those were kind of the key things that drew me to it. So fast forward a couple years, we're starting this clothing company and we learned about drop shipping. We're selling sunglasses from China. We're drop shipping them to people around the world, Australia, Europe. And then people start asking me if I can help them out. So that kind of turned me into a freelancer where I'm helping other people, build their website and optimize it for online advertising. And then from there, as my client base grew, I kind of built up a brand. And initially, my idea was I'm going to dominate Orlando, Florida. So our zip code is our area code, our phone number code is 407. So I came up with the 407 group as, Orlando's go-to marketing solution. And through that process, forming a company and legitimizing the business, it's opened up a lot of doors in terms of meeting with people that also own local businesses. And so all of that kind of funneled me into working with, lately we've been doing a lot of automotive car dealerships. And the reason for that is because they have a really high margin. So they budget a lot of money to sell a vehicle. So because of that, as a marketing company, the cheaper we can drive that cost down, we're making a lot of money. We're saving them a lot of money and in turn making a lot of value for them. So that's kind of where we've been headed. So right now, that's been our primary focus. We have a lot of cool things in the works, which I'm sure we'll get into throughout this podcast. But that's a little bit about how we started. I did the traditional freelancer, and then I moved on to forming an actual agency. So it's been quite a journey so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this sort of from the beginning where you're doing sort of the retail and building this up, getting a name for yourself. What's the time span? This is 2019. Was that in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. So right now I'm 24. When I was 18, maybe 19, that's when we were doing the online retail. Getting familiar with Shopify, Facebook ads, stuff like that. We were selling mainly sunglasses and clothes. Under the name Tails Casual Outfitters. There's a surfing and fishing brand. And that was while I was in school at Florida State, studying real estate and entrepreneurship, actually. So that kind of helped pave the way, I guess, learning the entrepreneurship side in class. That really helped me out, while I'm figuring out going from a freelancer and being self-employed to actually owning an agency. So that all of that kind of culminated into what it is today. So yeah, about 5 years ago, I started out, and then over the next 2 or 3 years from there, I was doing some freelance stuff, and then it slowly evolved into being a more legitimate business, having to find employees and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at today, where I have like a back office that I outsource a lot of the work to, and managing employees and having a client book. It slowly starts to grow, and over the years we've really built up quite a client base.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that transition, obviously, the retail Facebook, gave you some really foundational things of what worked and what didn't work with certainly Facebook, and then it has evolved. I know you're doing Facebook, and also are you doing Google also?
We do consulting for Google. We understand the platform very well. That's not one of our core services. We kind of stick to Facebook as our core service, but then there's other kind of ancillary products like Google Ads, website development, stuff like that we offer, on a case-by-case study. But our primary focus is being the best at Facebook advertising. And because of that, that's kind of our core offering. But we also, depending on what the client needs, we have the ability to help them out in all these different areas.
Right.
So like a typical client, someone we brought in September or October, a car dealership client, they weren't doing anything on Facebook. And part of building this, omnipresent branding strategy, you kind of have to be in all these different places at once. So we got them on Facebook and showed them what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing on the other platforms. So they have another agency that handles a lot of the other work, but we're acting as a consultant, telling them, this is our Facebook strategy, this is our traditional radio and cable strategy, and then this is what we need to be doing on the website to make all of that convert properly.
I see. Well, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just curious, because there's a lot of learning here. Actually, there's never a straight line, right? There's always these curveballs.
No.
There's always these curveballs. And so going from retail and then getting your brand up there, getting known for some of this, and please, can you help us out? And then building that up to like more of an agency, but then kind of switching over to automotive. Was that a sort of a by chance thing, or were you thinking, what?
It's a little bit of everything. Part of becoming, going from freelancer to like an actual company or business, that's definitely the biggest step.
Exactly.
And a foundational piece of that is really your network. So who are you working with, and who do you know that can help you get from where you're at to where you want to go? So a really crucial piece of the equation is, luckily my uncle, after 5 years of kind of bending over backwards, learning the area and really becoming a professional at advertising, I ran into my uncle after a long time, and he sells cars for a living. So that got me in touch with the automotive industry. And that's kind of how that took off. In the first month, we set a budget, which was like half of what he was doing on Google. So it wasn't a significant amount, but in that first month, I brought him over like 500 leads. Like we literally broke his lead intake process to the point that he had to hire, like he paid a consultant $5,000 over 2 days just to come down and fix, the processes he used to intake these leads. So, that was kind of justification for the strategy that I'm doing. If we're so good that we can break someone's lead intake process, then obviously that's something that other dealers in a similar position might need.
Fantastic.
So it's been a couple months since we kind of narrowed in on the automotive industry, but since then we just keep generating great results that dealers keep asking us about. So that's kind of how we got into the space. And again, it's a little bit of luck and a little bit of who you know. And
Yeah.
I was very lucky to have someone in the family that was in the space, and they introduced me to the right people. So now I have, a client base in the area, and they're starting to refer people. So, it's been a long time coming when you count, selling sunglasses online for $20 a pop to, selling, I don't even know. We've probably sold a couple $1 million worth of cars by now. So
Yeah. Now that's a tremendous sort of path in growth and also experience and hard learning. And really what I take away from all of this, and I also get questions about this, is, how do you develop these relationships? Obviously, how do you get clients? Everybody wants clients, whether you're on the agency side or, customer, patients, clients, etc. But it's this idea that you get enough experience and develop case studies and real life experience.
Exactly.
That you can then showcase back out, whether it's like with your uncle, you say, hey, I'd love to help you out, see what I can do, kind of thing, which
and even sorry to interrupt, but even I know some people might see this and they'll say, oh, well, his uncle, he's a car dealer, he has a way in. But literally I approached him like any other client. I didn't go to him and say, yeah, give me all your money and I'll run Facebook ads. He asked me if I could help him out. And I identified $20,000 of ad spend that was essentially wasted because they didn't know what they were doing. Yeah. So I approached them just like any other person. If you provide them value up front, then they'll realize that value and they'll give it back to you in another way. So a lot of it is, leading with value, and then they'll repay that if what you're offering aligns with what they need. So I showed them where they were, potentially losing money, and then they appreciated that and brought me in, to run some of their campaigns. And then it just kind of snowballed from there, where we're increasing the budget. And again, going back to, you said it's really important to have these case studies. And not only that, but I see a lot of these new people that are trying to start an agency, they build a case study around the wrong things. So they might say, look, we got 1,000 page likes, but at the end of the day, no one really cares about page likes. How much did you sell? How much did it earn the dealer or whoever you're working with? What was the return? You have to focus on the key metrics and not just, we run your social media and this is how great it is. We got this many likes. Those numbers should be a derivative of driving sales. So if you drive sales, then the rest will follow. Is my theory on it.
Yeah, in fact, you see it too. I know we're in some similar groups and stuff, and this flashy, Facebook snapshots of ROAS of 100,000. You get my drift, right? It's just an amazing and look at this. And then when you dig deeper, what is really the ROI and the profits and the structure of that whole thing? And we recently did an event. We do a bunch of events, and I think we spent around 40 or 50K. And the ROAS was like 1.2 or 3. It was very low, I remember. But yet the event itself was very successful. And we obviously, in that case, sold high tickets. So it was like $4,000 for a ticket. And the ROI on that was positive in the end, even though it's a lot of overhead and stuff. But understanding that whole path there to the math, as I say, that's so critical. And I love the fact that you're talking about that, because I think more clients and also in the community need to hear that, these flashy sort of front metrics and some of these immediate back numbers is not where the magic lies.
No, exactly. And I know there's a lot of like Shopify gurus out there, and they'll say, oh, I sold $1 million in 30 days. But going back to how I got started, doing Shopify and drop shipping, one of the things I ran into is, I could drive sales with these ads, but it was actually keeping the profit was the issue.
Yes.
So I would be selling products, and then you get 1 or 2 returns, and 15 sales worth of profit is out the window. So even if they're you got to know where you stand in the equation. And what I mean by that is, just because someone's driving sales on Shopify, that doesn't mean they're making money. Just because you're giving 50 times return on ad spend, that doesn't really mean anything unless the dealer or the client or whoever you're working with is actually making money. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's all that they care about. That's all you should care about. And if you can do that, you'll have a lifelong client.
Yeah, exactly. And it starts with CPA less than AOV, right? And then you build it up.
Yeah, Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, this is great, man. And you have some nice clients too. I know Kia and Mitsubishi is in that roster, so a great job for getting that going.
And that's kind of in the car space, a lot of what people are doing is they'll make a catalog for the vehicles, and that's something that we don't do. And I don't know if you're familiar with that whole process, but we actually don't make vehicle catalogs because we notice the metrics aren't there for what we're doing. We almost entirely focus on driving traffic to their website and retargeting those people based on what pages they visit. So a lot of people do that with dynamic catalogs. We don't do that simply because the numbers didn't make sense, and we weren't getting the same number of leads as if we create our own graphics. And part of our process is actually we make graphics for every single vehicle and every single color at every single angle. So a typical dealer, they might have 400 to 600 pictures. Like Kia, they have 12 models in their lineup. Yeah. So what that means for us is we have 12 models and 6 different colors and 10 different angles. We put all of that on Facebook and let the market decide what they want to see. So the pictures that get the most likes are obviously the best pictures. That's what we're using for lead ads, and we're retargeting engagement. I mean, we have this whole process in place that requires quite some work to put together. But in the end of the day, it's getting we've gotten as high as 6 times ROI for clients. So it's working out.
It's kind of like your own process for your mini DPA or something. It's like
and again, that's part of part of scaling up an agency. Going back to that, we had to hire a back office and start creating things like standard operating procedures and training manuals, which is something, if you're starting out an agency, you really got to focus on that. And that's something I highly underestimated. I thought I could just hire someone and they would know what to do. And I could not be more wrong. You get so many more headaches when you hire someone that doesn't have a clear and concise, path forward to completing their job. So part of, scaling up an agency and growing up as a business is creating these standard operating procedures and mapping out exactly what you want each deliverable to do. So again, that's just, if you're starting out an agency, I wouldn't underestimate things like that. And there's a lot of resources like Tranual. That's a good one that I've used before. There's Process Street. That's another really good training resource. Or
the Process Street, yeah. Well, that's phenomenal. I know. As we were sort of talking before, having a really detailed and streamlined process and really systems and processes is where a lot of the magic lies. And it's sort of like you said, underestimated that perhaps, but also the work that goes into that. And I know you spent a lot of time on that. It speaks volumes to your organization and how you approach these things. And one of the things that I had a question about here as we're moving forward is, in the sort of automotive industry, since we're sort of talking about that, I know you cover other industries as well, but what are some of the strategies perhaps that go into, like, we're tying it back to omnipresence, some of the tips maybe to create visibility and we talk about brand, but also we talk about ROI and return on money, obviously, in anything marketing, but to get that visibility up there, what are some of the tips or insights you've found to work there? I know you mentioned networking, but obviously there's on and offline. Go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of what goes into selling a car is actually pretty crazy. Google and Facebook both have a lot of resources that they've put together in terms of insights on the car buying journey. And I mean, obviously it works in any industry, but this is what I'm most familiar with. So I'll use it to explain. I mean, there's typically almost 30 touch points that a consumer will make when buying a vehicle. So what that means is they're going to hit your dealership at some point 30 different times, whether it's radio or cable or newspaper or Google, Instagram, Facebook, there's all these different avenues that are going to lead these people to your dealership. So the key to funneling them in is you have to be in all of those different places in order to maximize your exposure. So building like an omnipresent strategy, it really starts with the data. So when I get a new client, the first things I'm asking is, where are you putting money, right? And then how do you know that that's working for you? And then if they either can't track it or they don't know where it's going, then we kind of have to rethink the whole thing. And I typically resort back to Google Analytics. That's a huge tool. Everyone should be using it. Most people are. But looking at Google Analytics and saying, all right, where are people coming from our site? And where's the cheapest option to grow that, right? And in the beginning, you might have to do a lot of R&D, finding out new territories. But for the most part, you have to be, instead of spending, 10 grand on one avenue, you might want to section it out into 4 or 5 different channels and then do some data collection and analyze what's working best. That way, over time, you're building a better strategy. So that's one thing I see people getting a lot wrong is, especially these car dealerships, they're really kind of old fashioned in the sense they use a lot of traditional media. Yeah. So they might spend 50 grand on radio or cable, and that's their only avenue. It's rolling the dice on this traditional media. So, building an omnipresent solution is more about, why don't we spend 25 grand on the traditional, and then we'll section off, 3 to Google Ads. We'll do 2 on Google Display. See different avenues that might work better. And then after a month, we can look back and say, oh yeah, Google Ads, that's providing a good return on investment. We got 100 leads out of that channel. Or Facebook ads, we're getting leads the cheapest on Facebook because we can retarget them better. There's no one solution for every customer, but that's the approach that you have to take. What are different things we can allocate the budget to? Where can we cut it back a little bit and then reportion that into a new channel and see if that works? Because that's one of the issues. If you're not changing and constantly innovating, then you're going to get caught in a rut at some point. So you have to allocate a little bit to R&D. Research and develop different strategies that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Can you hear me okay, Jay? You had to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it was just a hiccup. Yeah, so that is really good. In fact, this brings about another challenge. I'm curious to see how you solve this, which is, like you said, TV, radio, the automotive industry, kind of stodgy, stoic, or whatever the word is I'm looking for, in the sense that we do it this way. We know it works. And yes, we know Google. I mean, yes, we've seen the reports that, digital is overtaking TV and radio for the first time in history, et cetera, et cetera. That's fine. We're good here and we're growing, and that's all we need. And so you need somebody to not only inform them like you are doing right now, but also information in that sense is fine, but you need an advocate or somebody who says, Jay, I'm gonna help you here. I'm gonna allocate some budgets, and yes, we're gonna get started. How do you best find that process to work or not work? Because in some cases you may not choose to work with a dealership because they're frankly just too I'll use the word annoying. Like, I don't want to even work with these guys,
So a lot of the issues that I run into when pitching a client in the automotive space is typically that they've been burned in the past by someone else in the digital space. And I get that's a reasonable thing. You're cautious. The other thing is, what they have is working. And what I would say to that is that, it might be working now, but as digital is continuously taking more market share, will that work for the future? Why don't you jump on it right now? That way you're prepared when you don't want to be that last person to jump to digital, because then you're going to be the one without a chair, essentially. Right. And then the other thing is always, even if you're doing traditional marketing or whatever you're doing now, how do you know it's working? And most dealers really can't say definitively the exact reason why it's working. They just know it's working because people are coming in. If they spend $50,000 in all these different avenues, obviously some people are going to trickle in. But the issue with that is that they can't measure the results properly because they don't know where people are coming, and then therefore they can't improve those results because they don't have the data to measure it and analyze. So that's one of the benefits to, in my opinion, going digital, is because things like offline conversions with Facebook. So like what I do for my clients is every month I'll run our ads, and at the end of the month, I'll upload all of the sales that were made in that month, and Facebook will say, yeah, that person bought a car within 7 days, that person bought a car within 7 days, and then you're giving a dealer, hard numbers on this is how much money you made, and it's all because of this ad, and then that's when you really start getting an idea of what's working best, and maybe some ideas on where you should cut back the budget. So that's really the benefit, because with radio, you have no idea how many people you're hitting. I mean, with cable, it's like, when was the last time you watched an entire commercial? I fast forward. I don't even have cable. I have YouTube TV. I don't watch ads. If car dealerships not hit me because I'm not on a traditional marketing source like most people. But all of that just goes to digital is trackable from A to Z, and even stuff like if I send someone to the website, but then they leave and they end up becoming a lead through Google, that's called an assisted conversion. Right. So you can even track stuff like that, and it's just really clear and concise. This is how much you put in. This is what you got. Why don't we double that budget? It gets really easy when you know exactly what you're getting for the service. Yeah, and that actually ties back to the first excuse a lot of dealers say, that they've been burned in the past. And the reason that's the case is because they don't have someone that knows quite as much as they should, and they're not providing the level of service that you need. So, there's a couple of different things that people kind of are hesitant to start out with. But in my opinion, I mean, it's a no-brainer when you can see this person, bought a car on Wednesday because they saw an ad on Monday. It doesn't get any easier than that in terms of providing value to your clients, and proving, your worth. So all of those things kind of tie together.
That is awesome. And transparency in data. And I know that at the 407 group, I just opened up your website briefly here. We're going to cover some of the contact information here towards the end, but you also mentioned something really cool here, which is you're working on some new technology, and I guess there's some announcements coming out. I don't want to bust your bubble here or whatever, but can you talk a little bit about that? And I know chatbots are really, really popular. And again, not to say that, we all get caught in the shiny widget syndrome, right? But the fact is there's some really cool technologies, and in the industries that you're working on, it sounds like you're on to the next chapter for your organization.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've determined, working with all of our clients, we found out there's a huge need for lead automation, is like follow-up automations. That's one thing. And then the other thing, this chatbot that we're making, I can't say any dates or anything. I can't disclose too much, but this thing it's pretty remarkable. And it's not just something built on ManyChat or one of the other chat softwares that a lot of people are putting together. This has its own unique back end. It syncs your inventory, like a dealer's inventory on their website. It'll sync to their Facebook page and post automatically to Facebook Marketplace, which that's quickly becoming one of the biggest avenues for car dealers. It has stuff like a credit application bot, so someone can not only find a car on Marketplace and favorite it and get notified when that car drops in price, but they can actually get pre-approved for it, filling out this credit application using the chatbot. Yeah. And then things like, scheduling service and getting reminded for that service and scheduling test drives. I mean, there's just a list of features that, I can't wait to go into detail when we fully release it. But that's in the works, and we're expecting, pretty big numbers for that chatbot. I mean, something that almost any automotive dealer needs. So we're pretty excited about that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love technology too, and especially if it serves an audience and it makes sense and adds value.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer for these dealerships. I mean, there's some dealers that are paying up to $1,000 a month for like a managed chat service, and this chatbot just completely eliminates the need for that. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I'll have to get you a link of it pretty soon so you can check it out.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, and I'm friends in the automotive industry here in Los Angeles and also in Texas, and so I'll help promote where I can. So
no, of course, and Texas is actually we've got a list of dealers that we're trying to work with out there. So we'll cross paths at some point doing that.
absolutely. We'll talk about that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. This is great, Jay. And as we're coming to a close here, I just want to talk a little bit about what drives you, what inspires you. Obviously, you started with Facebook, and you began with the retail business, and you're a go-getter. I can tell, an entrepreneur, of course, very unique in that way. But there's something that sort of foundational, even before that happened, right? Who inspires you, and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, my dad's definitely probably my biggest inspiration. He's a real estate developer. That's what I went to school to do, and I'm still, doing that a little bit here and there. But just the way that he approaches life, kind of holistically, he's always having fun, but he's, by far the hardest worker I've ever met. So he's definitely up there as probably number one inspiration.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And it's family, which is, number one, so yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and I know you also have some players in the internet marketing field or the business field. You mentioned Cardone and Bezos, obviously kind of different.
Yeah. Well, and that again ties in with the real estate side. Cardone, he's just a beast when it comes to online marketing, and obviously I'm a huge proponent of real estate investing. So, he's a really good person to look up to. And then Bezos on the flip side is, he's really technology driven. He's a forward thinker. Just his level of vision is pretty remarkable. So, those three people together, I think by far are, my biggest inspirations. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
It's hard to beat. Bezos is going to put us on Mars or something crazy. I'm excited to see where he takes us. I wish I could be in his position. He's just a beast.
Yeah, is he number one, not richest in the world past Gates?
Yeah, and I don't see Gates coming back from that anytime soon. He's still in the up.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome. Yeah, very inspiring conversation here today. Lots of strategies and tactics, and I just wanted to let people know that they can obviously reach you at their at your company URL there, which I just flashed up on the screen, the 407group.com. But where else might somebody reach you, Jay?
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's at Jay Nisbett. Twitter's at Jay Nisbett. My company page is at the 407 Group on every social media. And then those of you interested in this automotive chatbot, that'll be coming out soon under the name Set Show Sold. So that's kind of the next big thing. If you're interested in that, you can always send me a DM or a tweet or something. I'll get back to you.
Great. Yeah, and I'll post all the information in the podcast and as we distribute out there. And so that's great. Dude, I really appreciate this. It's awesome. And any final thoughts or any sort of last minute tidbits or takeaways or elements that somebody should consider being in this industry of digital and agency and really entrepreneurialism, I guess I should say, entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think in my mind, it's always been an easy step going towards entrepreneurship. But that's not to give you the idea that it's always, roses. There's definitely ups and downs. It's a constant battle. It's a constant struggle making things happen when you're risking it all to put it together. So at the end of the day, you should always just do what feels right and not over leverage yourself. You don't want to put yourself in a bad position. And in my opinion, you should always try and find a way to work for yourself, because at the end of the day, that's the best way to be happy, long term. So.
Yeah, actually just reminded me there, Jay. Thanks for that. Entrepreneurship is definitely not rainbow roses, unicorns.
Yeah,
they call it. But I was in San Diego just last week for the Traffic and Conversion Summit. You're familiar with that, of course.
Yeah.
And Branson was there, and Branson he has multiple billion-dollar businesses. Now at this point, but he talks a lot about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, and even set up a foundation for that. And I think anybody listening to this and listening to Jay today should take a hard look at what they're doing. And if they're working for somebody else, that's fine. And when you're younger and you come out of school or whatever, yeah, maybe you take menial jobs, maybe you even go the McDonald's route. But, ultimately, you can really change your own life. You can change other people's lives and really add a lot of value to the community. And we've seen a lot of this through these various podcasts and interviews. And today it's just a perfect example with Jay Nisbett here today. So I really appreciate everybody watching and listening. And Jay, once again, it's really awesome to get to know you a little more and hear all the success.
Yeah, thank you for having me, John. Man, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Well, we'll see you on the interwebs, and thank you all for checking in here.
All right, John, I appreciate it.
See ya.
Bye.